morning. So we started indirect taxes also. I think so. We started indirect taxes. We supposed to discuss GST. So just to summarize what all we covered. Excise duty, direct tax or indirect tax? Excise duty, direct tax or indirect tax? How can you say it is indirect tax? It is finally passed on to consumer, MRP inclusive of all taxes. And then we said customs duty, countervailing duty, anti-dumping duty, sales tax, luxurious tax, entertainment tax, VAT, value added tax also. Remember, what is the difference between countervailing duty and anti-dumping duty? Correct. Price difference is because of export subsidies given by the foreign government to counter the difference. Countervailing duty. What is anti-dumping duty? Deliberately they are keeping the prices low in our country to kill our domestic market by the global manufacturers. That's called as anti-dumping duty. So countervailing duty, anti-dumping duty collected by both central government as well as state government. Only central government. Why, sir? Custom duty is collected by whom, dear? Only center. So countervailing duty, anti-dumping duty is nothing but one type of custom duty only. So okay. Then luxury tax. What is luxury tax? Tax paid on luxury goods and services is called as luxury tax. So what is entertainment tax? Earlier it used to be collected on leisure activities, but right now GST. Okay. Then sales tax. So central sales tax, state sales tax. Remember? So after that we covered VAT. So VAT is collected at single point or multiple point. VAT is collected at single point or multiple point. Multiple points. Wherever value addition happens. What is value addition, dear? What is value addition, dear? కనిపించట్లేదు సార్, వెతుకుతున్నాం సార్. In the stages of the production, from previous stage, incremental value that got added is called as value addition. Suppose you are wearing a dress. The dress is a final product, but that this did not become final product like that. It came from a raw material. So from nylon or terracotta or polythene or some material, they cut into pieces, then they stitched, then embroidery, then design, then branding. Finally, the product that you are wearing is the final product. But from the raw material of the cloth, all the stages is called as value addition. For every economy class, if you listen to the class, value addition is supposed to happen. Not just if you listen to the class, dear. If you listen, if you understand, if you remember, if you revise, every class is a value addition. Correct only? First NCERT class, last NCERT class, some value addition supposed to happen? Don't know, sir. It's supposed to happen, provided you have come to the class, you acted as if you are listening to the class, and you are studying and you are revising. What is the meaning of value addition? Take UPSC preparation. Some value addition will happen to you. Don't know, sir. It will happen. Unlike a common man who is thinking about politics, unlike a common man who is criticizing about the government, responsible UPSC aspirant, he is understanding from political dimension, economic dimension, social dimension, ethical dimension. So value addition is happening. Definitely you will become a good person. Whether this good is better or not, your time will tell in the future. Before you came to Ashok Nagar, after you came to Ashok Nagar, any value addition happened to you? Yes, sir. Before you were very innocent, sir. After coming here, we became intelligent, intellectuals. The tea shop discussions are about how to stop the war in Ukraine. Correct only. You are telling suggestions to whom? Putin, but he is not listening. So value addition is happening. So VAT is collected by both state government as well as central government. Yes dear, CENVAT and state VAT. Mod VAT also was there. Which is the first country to introduce VAT? Which is the first country? France. So which is the first state in India to introduce VAT? Haryana. Correct? So what are the problems with the VAT? Water. So if you look at VAT was not completely digitized. Then what else? No uniformity of the tax rates. What else? Tax buoyancy was low because VAT rates was high. What about tax base? Tax base was low, tax rates were high. That was called as VAT system, right? So to prevent these problems only, we came up with one more suggestion, that's called as GST. So what is GST? Gold and silver tax. Goods and services tax. Per marchara. Okay. So earlier also many times there was a proposal to introduce GST, but states did not accept. Why states did not accept, sir? Because states lost operational autonomy of collecting indirect taxes. So which constitutional amendment bill is related to GST? 122. So finally it became which constitutional amendment act? 101 CAA. So it became 101 CAA. Why all the bill will not become an act? Why all the bill will not become an act? Electricity bill, phone bill, gas bill. We are not talking about that bill. We are talking about bills in the parliament. Based on the type of the bill, once the Lok Sabha speaker classifies the bill is supposed to go through either Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha and majority. Apart from that, President has to give consent to it, then only bill becomes act. Correct? So if the bill do not get the majority or President assent is not there, then bill does not become an act. Can we say that? Okay. So 122 Constitutional Amendment Bill, it took a lot of time for us to become 101 CAA. GST popular slogan or popular tag is one nation, one market, one tax. Look at the word. One nation, one market, one tax. So why are you saying one nation, dear? Throughout the India, instead of multiple indirect taxes, there would be only one indirect tax. One market. Consider the entire Indian domestic territory as single place of market. Tax, uniformity of the tax rates. That's why GST is called as single point. Look at the word. GST is called as single point destination based tax. What do you mean of destination here? Place of consumption. Destination wedding. What is destination wedding? Some place, some island or some Arundhati Kota, wherever. The places which are called as destination. So here what is the meaning of destination? What is your future destination? What is your future destination? Opposite hostel only, sir. What is your future destination? Obviously Mussoorie, correct only? So why, sir? For tour? No. So destination meaning the place at which finally the product is used. In VAT, where tax was collected here? At multiple points in the stages of the value addition. But where GST is being collected? Finally at destination. So cascading effect to some extent is reduced because of GST. What is cascading effect here? tax on tax. That's the reason why GST helps in reducing cascading effect. Can we say that? So this is story about basic idea of what is GST. Which of the following statements are correct? GST replaced all the indirect taxes. Why? Not all the indirect taxes. GST replaced some of the indirect taxes. So if you look at, still custom duty exists. Come on dear, still custom duty exists. Countervailing duty exists. Anti-dumping duty exists. Yes, they are there. So GST replaced what? Sales tax, VAT, luxury tax, entertainment tax. So GST tried to consolidate many of the indirect taxes, but GST completely did not replace all the indirect taxes. Okay. So Vijay Kilkar committee said, let's improve tax buoyancy among the indirect taxes. How do we improve tax buoyancy, sir? For which the committee suggested, in GST, let's increase tax base. Let's widen the tax base, bring more goods and services in the basket of the GST, introduce multiple GST rates 0, 3, 5, 12, 18, 25. So overall tax buoyancy for the government will increase. Look at the word. Tax base was earlier low, now we widen the tax base. And tax rates relatively we increased low slabs and multiple slabs. In the process, tax buoyancy for the government supposed to increase. In simple words, in VAT, we used to collect more tax rate on less number of goods. In GST, what government is doing? On more number of goods and services, different multiple lower slabs are collected. అంటే ఏంటంటే ఓ 100 మంది దగ్గర 1000 రూపాయలు కలెక్ట్ చేసే బదులు ఓ 10,000 మంది దగ్గర 10 రూపాయలు కలెక్ట్ చేద్దాం. Which is better? That's the reason why GST buoyancy is more. Because of GST, do you think the prices of all the goods and services decrease? No, sir. Some of the cases, prices of goods and services got decreased. Okay. Now, which of the following statements are correct? Statement 1. Union government alone can change GST rates. No. In 101 CAA, Article 279A, President will establish a constitutional body called GST Council for implementation of GST. So, GST Council is a constitutional body or a statutory body? What is constitutional body? What is statutory body, dear? How do you know? If an organization is established according to provisions mentioned in the constitution, that is called as constitutional body. Article 280, Finance Commission, constitutional body. Election Commission, Article 324, constitutional body. Inna manna newspaper lo unnai, Bihar election. So Supreme Court permitted Election Commission to revise the voters, but suggested to add Aadhaar card, driving license, PAN card to the list of the documents. So Election Commission, constitutional body or statutory body? Telangana Public Service Commission, constitutional body or statutory body? No sir, extra constitutional body. Constitutional body only, dear. Planning Commission, neither constitutional body nor statutory body. Niti Aayog, neither constitutional body nor statutory body. Your hostel, not at all a body at all. So if you look at GST Council, earlier was not there in the constitution, but in 101 CAA, we added, which article, sir? This article is added to Indian Constitution. For what? Establishment of GST Council. So what is the status of GST Council? Constitutional body. Previous year question. GST Council is constitutional body, statutory body, neither constitutional body nor statutory body. So what is the answer? Constitutional body, because now we know. Who is the chairman of GST Council, sir? Union Finance Minister, not Prime Minister. So who will be there in GST Council, sir? Union Finance Minister plus Minister of State Finance. Generally, Cabinet consists of, Council of Ministers consists of Cabinet Ministers, Minister of State independent charge, Minister of State subordinate charge. All are called as Council of Ministers. Okay, so whenever we talk about Council of Ministers, it includes Cabinet Ministers, assisting them MOS, Minister of State independent charge, assisting them MOS, Minister of State subordinate charge. All these are part of Council of Ministers only. Plus State Finance Ministers plus Finance Ministers representing UTs which have legislative assemblies. Which union territories have legislative assemblies? Pondicherry, Delhi, Jammu and Kashmir. Pondicherry, Delhi, Jammu and Kashmir. These union territories have legislative assemblies also. So when they have a legislative assembly, they have chief minister, they have finance minister also. So who will be there in GST Council, sir? All these members will be there. In GST Council voting, 2/3 voting power is given to all the states together. 1/3 voting power is given to central government. But any decision will be taken with 3/4 majority in the GST Council. What does it mean, sir? Invite all the state finance ministers, invite all the finance ministers representing union territories. Should we increase tax or not? Should we decrease tax or not? Voting will be conducted. In that voting, if GST Council takes a decision with 3/4 majority, then only decision will be taken. Okay, this is the story of GST Council. Now, I gave a statement also yesterday. So in that statement, I told, so GST Council recommendations are not binding on. What is the meaning of GST Council? Recommendations are not binding on the government, sir. It's not compulsory for the center to follow whatever is decided in GST Council meeting. It is advisory only. Why, sir? During COVID-19 time, as compensation was promised in GST Act, center could not pay full compensation to the states. The reason being, during COVID-19 time, not only states' income got affected, but center's income also got affected. Now, because of which, center's revenue was not there. Central government was not able to pay full compensation to the states. States filed a case in the Supreme Court. And Supreme Court said that GST Council recommendations are not binding on the union government. They are only recommendatory in nature. So in this case, yes, earlier GST Council promised compensation, but because of COVID-19, center's financial position also is not so good. So if center itself does not have the money, how will they pay the compensation? So Supreme Court said that GST Council recommendations are not binding on the government, union government. Parents చెప్పినవన్నీ మీరు ఫాలో అవుతున్నారా? Before you came to Hyderabad, parents gave so many suggestions. Grandparents also gave so many suggestions. పంపించారు కదా, ఏమేం చెప్పారు? బాగా చదువుకో, ట్యాంక్ బండ్కి వెళ్ళొద్దు, ఎవరికంటే వాళ్ళకి ఫోన్ నెంబర్ ఇవ్వద్దు, ఎవరిని నమ్మొద్దు. ఎందుకు? నమ్మితే వాళ్ళ జీతం ఏమవుతుందో నీ వల్ల. సో దీస్ ఆర్ అడ్వైజరీ ఇన్ నేచర్. ఫాలో అయితే ఎవరికి మంచిది? మనకే మంచిది. ఫాలో అవ్వకపోతే ఎవరికి మంచిది? హాస్టల్లో ఫ్రెండ్స్కి మంచిది. అడ్వైజరీ, నాట్ కంపల్సరీ. ఇక్కడ చెత్త వేయరాదు. అడ్వైజరీయా కంపల్సరీయా? అడ్వైజరీయా కంపల్సరీయా? ఓకే. ఎలక్షన్లో ఓటేయండి, ప్రజాస్వామ్యాన్ని కాపాడండి. Advisory. Suppose government says, if you don't vote in the elections, you cannot write government exam for next 5 years. ఓటేస్తారా అప్పుడు? ఒకటి కాదు సార్, 2 ఓట్లు వేస్తారు. వై? it is directly impacting you. So advisory guidelines are not subject to be followed seriously, dear, because that is advice only. That is advice only. Now, what all questions which are asked in the exam? He'll be reading the paper. Union Finance Minister will be calling for GST Council meetings. So in the GST Council meeting, they'll be deciding slab rate 0, 3, 5, 12, 18, 25. I'll just give a simple example to understand how GST rates are decided. In a village, fresh milk and fresh vegetables, any GST is collected? ఇంటికెళ్ళారు, సో పాల వాళ్ళు వచ్చి పాలు పోస్తున్నారు, బర్రెపాలు, గొర్రెపాలు, పిల్లపాలు, వాట్ ఎవర్. సో GST is collected. Why? It is not processed, sir. Very good. So that milk is fortified, and in the packet, fortified with vitamin A, fortified with vitamin D, fortified with something, and the processed packet milk, tax is collected. Yes, 5% tax is collected. From their buttermilk is generated and tetra packet is processed, GST is collected. Buttermilk will come from milk only? I think so. Buttermilk milk lo nunchi vachedi. Okay. Cheese, paneer, GST is collected. Yes. Ghee also come from milk only. Sweets made with the ghee. So look at what is happening to GST rates. Increasing. Pulla Reddy sweets or emerald sweets. Emerald na? Ramkrishna mata pakkana undadi. Emerald na? I think so. Emerald ghee sweets or whichever is a favorite sweet shop made with ghee. So if you look at GST, suppose you are traveling in a train, sleeper ticket, tax is collected. 3-tier AC, 2-tier AC, 1-tier AC, flight ticket. So what happens to GST? We are simply going on road by walk. Any GST is collected. So which means GST is collected based on affordability also, based on value of consumption also. So you are buying a normal phone, GST is paid. Which is your brand? So Google Pixel. Oh my god. So if the value of the product crosses above certain limit, Google Pixel also phone is there? Oh nice. Apple, Pineapple, White Apple, OnePlus, Xiaomi, Realme, Poco, Vivo, Redmi, whichever. So the normal phone less than 20,000, 30,000. So you have to pay GST. Phone value just 2 lakhs only, 28% GST. Who told you to buy that? Pay it. Yes. So goods and services tax. Who is deciding GST rates? Only union government, only state government, GST council. GST council. So GST council will periodically discuss with union and the state. Actually speaking, law does not specify, but it's purely choice of the finance minister. What do you mean of choice of the finance minister? Whenever finance minister wants, he or she can call for GST council meeting. Accordingly, they can decide GST council rates. Okay. So this is basic idea of what is called as GST council. Sir, just because parliament passed a law, does it mean that state government has to implement GST? పేరెంట్ చెప్తే మనం వినాలా? ఎందుకు వినాలి అసలు? ఫండమెంటల్ రైట్ సార్, ఆర్టికల్ 21 రైట్ టు లైఫ్ అండ్ పర్సనల్ లిబర్టీ సార్. పేరెంట్ చెప్తే మనం వినాలా? ఎందుకు వినాలి? మనకు ప్రైవసీ ఉంది కదా సార్. ఆర్టికల్ 19, ఆర్టికల్ 21. అప్పుడు వాళ్ళకు కూడా రైట్స్ ఉన్నాయి కదా. మీకు ఫండమెంటల్ రైట్స్ అంటే వాళ్ళకు కూడా ఫండమెంటల్ రైట్స్ ఉంటాయి కదా. చెప్పాం కదా ఏమున్నాయి వాళ్ళకి రైట్స్? ఆస్తులు కట్ చేయడం, కరెక్టేనా? అట్లీస్ట్. So why state government has to follow whatever central government says? Not only central government passed CGST Act, SGST Act, IGST Act, Each state also passed respective act to implement GST in conforming with constitutional order. Now, how is GST practically collected, sir? It is a dual structure mechanism. What is the meaning of dual structure mechanism, sir? Suppose if you take GST, overall GST is 5. In that, CGST is 2.5%, SGST is 2.5%. If you take 2, 3%, 6%, 6%. So if you take 18, 9%, 9%. So if you take 28, so 14%, 14%. Dual structure on the bill, which is mentioned if you observe next time. GST pay చేశారా డియర్? నేను కొన్నారా సూపర్ మార్కెట్లో? కొన్నారు కదా చాక్లెట్స్, రేపర్లు, బిస్కెట్లు. సో ఆన్ బిల్ నెక్స్ట్ టైం అబ్జర్వ్ CGST, HGST. Suppose on a chocolate, GST collected is 5%. CGST is 2.5, HGST is 2.5. So CGST will go to whom? Central government. HGST will go to whom? State government. However, in VAT, who used to collect GST? Place of consumption or place of production? Place of production. But in GST, which state will collect the tax? Destination. What is the meaning of destination? What is the meaning of destination? Place of consumption. You will be surprised. Uttar Pradesh is the largest receiver of GST. Even though Uttar Pradesh is not producing any goods and services. Why do you think so? It is the largest populated country in the world. Which is the largest populated state in India? Uttar Pradesh. More number of people are there, means what happens to consumption also? That's the reason why more GST. Even though it is not industrially developed, even though it is not producing. Actually, South Indian states are the largest producing states. Why South Indian states, sir? All talented people like you and me are there in South India only. Industries are there, infrastructure is there, roadway is there, both are talented only. But why Uttar Pradesh is getting more GST? What is the reason? Obviously largest population, so largest consumption. So GST is production based tax or consumption based tax? So that's what many people are saying. So that's why South Indian state CMs are telling, have as many children as possible. Chandrababu Naidu, so Tamil Nadu Chief Minister Stalin, so they're telling, oh Yuti Yukullara, ఇద్దాన్ని ఆపొద్దండి ఒక్కరితో. Sir, why? If more population, more consumption, more GST. And when Finance Commission is recommending funds also, one of the criteria taken is population. South Indian state, control. South Indian state population is low. Population తక్కువ ఉందంటే మంచిదా కదా? పాపులేషన్ తక్కువ ఉందంటే మంచిదే కదా, కానీ పాపులేషన్ తక్కువ ఉంది కాబట్టి తక్కువ ఫండ్స్ వస్తున్నాయి. సో దట్ ద రీజన్ వై సౌత్ ఇండియన్ స్టేట్ సీఎంస్ ఆర్ సేయింగ్ దట్ కంటిన్యూ ద వార్, డోంట్ స్టాప్ ద వార్. ఇద్దరు ముద్దు ఇకపై వద్దు, ఆపై హద్దు. ఇద్దరు ముద్దు ఇకపై వద్దు, ఆపై హద్దు. నాట్ మ్యారేజెస్, చిల్డ్రన్. సో అంతకుముందు China used to follow one child, one dog policy. One child, one dog policy. ఇప్పుడు యూత్ నో మ్యారేజ్, నో చైల్డ్ పాలసీ. ఇప్పుడు ప్రజెంట్ యూత్ ఏం ఫాలో అవుతున్నారు? నో మ్యారేజ్, నో చైల్డ్ పాలసీ. ఎందుకు సార్? భయం వేస్తుంది వాళ్ళకి. ఎవరి గురించి భయం వేస్తుంది? ఇద్దరిలో భవిష్యత్తులో ఎవరుంటారో ఎవరికి తెలియట్లేదు. నో క్లారిటీ అట్ ఆల్. వీళ్ళు వాళ్ళని చంపేస్తున్నారు, వాళ్ళు వీళ్ళని చంపేస్తున్నారు, వేరే వాళ్ళు ఇద్దరిని చంపేస్తున్నారు. సో ఇట్స్ నాట్ అబౌట్ ఆల్వేస్ ప్లేస్ ఆఫ్ ప్రొడక్షన్, ఇట్స్ అబౌట్ కన్జంప్షన్. సో టెక్నికల్లీ స్పీకింగ్, ఇఫ్ VAT was there, South Indian state where production was more, they used to get more taxes. Because of GST, The states which are not producing, but where the consumption is more, are getting more taxes. So this is one of the negatives that we can say. But here only one more concept will come, IGST. The states which were actually producing states who were getting more income under VAT did not accept to GST because they said GST is a destination based tax, we will lose revenue. So to compensate this only, center said revenue neutral state. What is the meaning of revenue neutral state? Under VAT, whatever you used to get, under GST, whatever you are getting, if you are getting more than what you are getting earlier, fine. Suppose in VAT you are getting 50,000 crore, in GST you are getting 70,000 crore, good only. But if you don't get minimum, the difference amount would be paid by central government as compensation to state government. Understood? So this was explicitly mentioned. After that, Assam was the first state to accept GST. Jammu and Kashmir was the last state to ratify GST. Finally, GST was implemented. However, here to adjust, GST Council suggested a concept called IGST. Sorry, what is the concept of IGST, sir? So GST is a single point destination based tax. What's meaning of destination based tax? So GST is collected on place of production, or GST is collected on place of consumption? Place of consumption. But it so happens that a state is producer of some good, it is also consumer of some other goods. Example to understand. Chikmagalur coffee powder is produced in Bangalore. So coffee is produced in Bangalore. So for coffee, Karnataka is a produced state. That coffee powder is used in Coffee Puram in Hyderabad. So Coffee Puram in Hyderabad, coffee, nice coffee only, 20 rupees. So which is the consumption state here? Telangana. So who is producing coffee? Karnataka. Who is consuming? Telangana. So GST will be collected where? Telangana. Opposite. Telangana is producing Telangana అప్పడాలు. సో ఈ అప్పడాలను ఎవరు వాడుతున్నారు? తమిళనాడులో ఒక హోటల్ నల్లకుట్టి. సో who is the production state? Telangana. But who is the consumption state? So which means at the end of 3 months, how much is collected by this state? How much of it was produced in the state to adjust where? Very important point. If production state is different, consumption state is different, GST is collected by consumption state only. So same state may be production state for some place, consumption state for some other product. Opposite. So at the end of the quarter, at the end of the year, how much supposed to be paid to each other, net amount is settled. That is called as integrated GST. In simple, in last 3 months, how much Telangana collected as GST? How much Karnataka collected as GST? But how many goods are produced in Tamil Nadu? How many goods are produced in Karnataka? Which they supposed to get actually. The difference amount only is adjusted. That is called as integrated GST. It is not a separate tax. It is adjustment mechanism. How, sir? A dress is produced in Hyderabad, consumed in Hyderabad. IGST is applicable. చార్మినార్కి వెళ్ళారు, అక్కడ ఫోటో దిగారు, ఆ పక్కనే షాపింగ్కి వెళ్ళారు, డ్రెస్ కొన్నారు, నైస్ డ్రెస్. సో ప్రొడ్యూస్డ్ ఇన్ చార్మినార్, హైదరాబాద్, కన్జ్యూమ్డ్ ఇన్ తెలంగాణ. ఈజ్ ఐజిఎస్టీ అప్లికబుల్? నాట్ అప్లికబుల్. వై ఐజిఎస్టీ ఈజ్ నాట్ అప్లికబుల్ డియర్? కరెక్ట్. ఎందుకు? ప్రొడక్షన్ స్టేట్ ఆల్సో సేమ్, కన్జంప్షన్ స్టేట్ ఆల్సో సేమ్. చార్మినార్ ఉస్మానియా బిస్కెట్స్ ఆర్ ప్రొడ్యూస్డ్ ఇన్ Hyderabad, but they are used somewhere in Maharashtra in a tea shop. Production state is Hyderabad, Telangana. Consumption state is Maharashtra. Similarly, Maharashtra organic jaggery is produced in Maharashtra, consumed in Telangana. Now look at, in these two cases, adjustment supposed to happen, because who is collecting the GST? Not the production state, consumption state. So that's the reason why the concept of IGST is introduced. I repeat once again, IGST is applicable only when production state is different, consumption state is different. The reason being, in VAT, who used to collect the tax? Production state. But in GST, who is collecting? So who will lose revenue in case of GST? Production states. So they said no, we need some mechanism. That's the reason why government said don't worry, we will adjust something called IGST. అంటే ఏంటి సార్, మనకు అర్థమైన భాషలో, మీ రూమ్లో ఇద్దరు ముగ్గురు ఉన్నారు, ఒకరేమో రెంట్ పే చేశారు, ఒకరేమో కర్రీ పాయింట్ పే చేశారు, ఒకరేమో కూరగాయలు ఇచ్చారు, అంతా మొత్తం మంత్ అయిన తర్వాత ఏం చేస్తున్నారు? సెటిల్మెంట్. ఎవరికి ఎంత ఇవ్వాలి? సేమ్ లాజిక్ అమాంగ్ ద స్టేట్స్ విల్ హ్యాపెన్, విచ్ ఈజ్ కాల్డ్ as IGST. సో ఇద్దరు ఫ్రెండ్స్ మూవీకి వెళ్ళారు, ఒకరేమో మూవీ టికెట్ బుక్ చేశారు, ఒకరేమో పాప్కార్న్ కొన్నారు, ఇద్దరికి గొడవైంది మధ్యలో. ఏం చేయాలి? వదిలేసి వచ్చేయాలా? వదిలేసి వచ్చేస్తారా? ఆ పాప్కార్న్ బకెట్ వాళ్ళకి ఇచ్చేస్తారు, అంతే. సెటిల్మెంట్. హాస్టల్కి వచ్చిన తర్వాత ఇక నుంచి నీకు నాకు కటిఫ్ అని చెప్పి యూ విల్ సెటిల్. సో ఎగ్జాక్ట్లీ సేమ్ థింగ్ స్టేట్స్ ఆర్ సెటిలింగ్ అమాంగ్ దెమ్సెల్వ్స్. దట్స్ వై ఇన్ ఎవ్రీ బిల్ IGST will not be mentioned. What does it mean? Production state is also same place, consumption state is also same place. ఎక్కుతుందా? ఎక్కిందా? సో ఇప్పుడు ఎక్కడైనా షాపింగ్ చేసిన తర్వాత, బిల్లు చూసిన తర్వాత ఏం గుర్తు రావాలి? ఓ జిఎస్టీ ఐఎన్ నంబర్. పర్లేదే, మనకు బాగా తెలిసే. వాళ్ళనే అడగాలి, హోటల్ వాళ్ళని, జిఎస్టీ అంటే ఏంటో తెలుసా? అప్పుడు అర్థమవుతుంది మనకేం తెలియదని. So GST number is different, GST network is different, reverse charge mechanism is different. We'll cover all of them. But this is basic rough idea about what is GST. Okay. So we'll introduce some more terms also one by one. Now which of the following statements are correct? Center has more voting power in GST council. No. ఈక్వల్ కూడా కాదు, సెంటర్కి 1/3 ఉంది. స్టేట్స్ హ్యావ్ మోర్ ఓటింగ్ పవర్ కంపేర్డ్ టు సెంటర్. సింగిల్ స్టేట్ అలోన్ కెన్ చేంజ్ GST slabs or GST rates. No. Okay. So he is called as 0, 3, 5, 12, 18, 28, all that. Sir, why GST is called as indirect tax, sir? Correct. See, finally you are paying to supermarket. Supermarket is paying to whom? Government. Incidence is on one person, impact is on other person. So GST valla meeku naaku enti labham? How is it helpful to common people, consumers? Cascading effect got decreased. So prices came down. When prices decreases, what happens to consumption? Increases. How was GST good for the traders? How was GST good for traders, business people? How is it helpful? Come on dear, those who studied GST in degree, how is GST helpful for the traders and business people? సార్ డిగ్రీ ఎగ్జామ్స్ ఇంకా రిజల్ట్ రాలేదు సార్. Earlier, the businesses were not registered formally. They were not getting loans and credit from the bank. Now, based on GST written, also banks are providing loans. See, a company or a business is filing GST return means that much business happened. You went to a restaurant, you paid the bill. That's the reason why they are paying GST return. GST return is filed means what? Business is happening. So formalization happened. How is the advantage for the government? VAT ki GST ki government gain labham. Katanta ini. ఎలా గవర్నమెంట్కి ఎలా లాభం జిఎస్టీ వల్ల వ్యాట్తో పోలిస్తే? ఎందుకు బయన్సీ పెరిగింది? కన్జంప్షన్ ఇంక్రీజ్ అయింది సార్. ఇంకా దట్ ఇస్ ద ఆన్సర్. ట్యాక్స్ బేస్ ఏమైంది జిఎస్టీలో? పెంచాం. మోర్ అండ్ మోర్ పీపుల్ ఆర్ బ్రాట్ అండర్ ట్యాక్స్ బేస్. సో ఓవరాల్ వాట్ ఈస్ హ్యాపెనింగ్ టు ట్యాక్స్ బయన్సీ ఫర్ ద గవర్నమెంట్ ఈజ్ ఇంక్రీజింగ్. దట్స్ వాట్ వెన్ యూ రీడ్ ద న్యూస్ పేపర్. ఫర్ ద ఫస్ట్ టైం single month revenue collection of GST crossed 1,90,000 crore in the month of April. ఒక్క సింగిల్ మంత్లో ప్రభుత్వానికి జిఎస్టీ ద్వారా వచ్చింది అక్షరాల 2 లక్షల కోట్లు. ఎలా వచ్చింది అలా? కన్జ్యూమర్స్ ఆర్ దేర్. కరెక్ట్ ఓన్లీ. ఫెస్టివల్ టైంలో ఆల్కహాల్ నుంచి రికార్డ్స్ ఆర్ బ్రోకెన్ జనరల్లీ. ఎలక్షన్స్ టైంలో కూడా. ఎందుకు? ఎమర్జెన్సీ. Water is not emergency. Medicine is not emergency. But what is emergency? అన్నిటికీ సొల్యూషన్ ఏంటి? ఆల్కహాల్. సో ఎగ్జామ్ ముందు ఏం చేయాలి? ఆల్కహాల్ తాగెళ్ళాలా? వామ్మో, నాట్ రిక్వైర్డ్. సో ఆల్కహాల్ మీద జిఎస్టీ అప్లికబుల్లో ఉందా? ఫారిన్ బ్రాండ్స్ మీదనేనా? ఇండియన్ బ్రాండ్స్ మీద లేదా? తెలుసా తెలీదా? రాలేస్తున్నారా? ఎక్సైజ్ డ్యూటీ వినలేదా? క్లాస్ రాలేదా? అందుకే ఆన్సర్ తెలియట్లేదు. కమాండ్ డియర్ దోస్ హూ అటెండెడ్ ఎక్సైజ్ డ్యూటీ, వాట్ డిడ్ వి సే? Excise duty on alcohol for individual consumption will continue. However, if alcohol is used for industrial consumption, the central excise which was applicable is replaced by GST. అంటే సార్, వైన్ షాప్కి వెళ్ళి, బార్కి వెళ్ళి, రెస్టారెంట్కి వెళ్ళి ఎక్కడైతే జిఎస్టీ, సో ఎక్కడైతే ఇండివిజువల్స్ అంటే ఫర్ దేర్ హౌస్ హోల్డ్ కన్జంప్షన్ ఇఫ్ దే ఆర్ బయింగ్, the rate that is applicable is actually excise only. ఎందుకు అంటే స్టేట్ గవర్నమెంట్స్ ఆర్ హ్యావింగ్ ఫ్రీడమ్ టు కలెక్ట్ హౌ మచ్ ఎవర్ స్టేట్ ఎక్సైజ్ డ్యూటీ దే వాంట్. అదే ఆల్కహాల్ శానిటైజర్లో, కాఫ్ సిరప్లో, మెడిసిన్స్లో వాడితే ఆన్ దట్ వాట్ ఈజ్ అప్లికబుల్ ఈజ్ యాక్చువల్లీ కాల్డ్ యాజ్ సెంట్రల్ ఎక్సైజ్. బట్ సెంట్రల్ ఎక్సైజ్ ప్లేస్లో ఏమి విధిస్తున్నారు ఇప్పుడు? జిఎస్టీ. అదేంటి సార్, మరి బార్ రెస్టారెంట్కి వెళ్ళినప్పుడు జిఎస్టీ ఉంది కదా, ఆ జిఎస్టీ దేని మీద? సర్వీసెస్ మీద, నాట్ ఆన్ ఆల్కహాల్. ఆల్కహాల్ బాటిల్ మీద ఉన్న ప్రైస్లో ఏమి ఇంక్లూడ్ అయ్యింది? ఎక్సైజ్, స్టేట్ ఎక్సైజ్. సో ఎందుకు స్టేట్ ఎక్సైజ్ డ్యూటీ స్టేట్కి మారుతుంది? స్టేట్ ఫైనాన్షియల్ పొజిషన్ బట్టి. అందుకోసమే అదే బాటిల్ ఇన్ పాండిచ్చేరి, అదే బాటిల్ ఇన్ గోవా, అదే బాటిల్ ఇన్ హైదరాబాద్ డిఫరెంట్. అందుకోసమే జనాలు అప్పుడప్పుడు నెలకోసారి గోవాకి, పాండిచ్చేరికి ఎందుకు వెళ్ళి వస్తున్నారు? ఎంటీ బాటిల్స్ కలెక్ట్ చేసుకోవడం కోసం. ఎంటీ బాటిల్స్ కావాలంటే ముందు ఏం చేయాలి? ఫుల్ బాటిల్ కొనాలి. స్టేట్ ఎక్సైజ్ డ్యూటీ డిఫర్ ఫ్రమ్ స్టేట్ టు స్టేట్. సో ఇంకోటి ఏంటంటే, సార్ జిఎస్టీ వల్ల కామన్ పీపుల్ మీద బర్డన్ పెరిగిందా తగ్గిందా? డూ యూ థింక్ ద బర్డన్ ఆన్ ద కామన్ పీపుల్ ఇంక్రీజ్డ్ ఆర్ డిక్రీజ్డ్ డ్యూ టు జిఎస్టీ? కొంచెం ఆలోచన చెప్పండి సార్. ఏంటి సార్ ఎప్పుడు క్వశ్చన్లు అడుగుతా సార్? ఎందుకు చెప్తున్నారు? వై డూ థింక్ ఇట్ ఈస్ ఇంక్రీజింగ్ ఆన్ పీపుల్? నిజానికి బర్డన్ ఆన్ ద కామన్ పీపుల్ యాక్చువల్లీ ఇంక్రీజ్డ్ బికాస్ ట్యాక్స్ బేస్ ఈజ్ వైడెండ్. ఎక్కువ వస్తువులు, ఎక్కువ సర్వీసెస్ని జిఎస్టీ కింద తీసుకురావడం వల్ల పే చేస్తున్నాం ప్రభుత్వానికి, కాకపోతే ఒకేసారి పే చేయట్లేదు. కొంచెం మిగతా వాటి మీద పే చేస్తున్నాం. సో ఓవరాల్ యాక్చువల్లీ బర్డన్ ఇంక్రీజ్. దట్ ద రీజన్ వై ఇన్కమ్ ఫర్ ద గవర్నమెంట్ ఇంక్రీజ్డ్. సో పొద్దున్నే సోప్ కొన్నారు. ఇఫ్ యూ హ్యావ్ హ్యాబిట్ ఆఫ్ టేకింగ్ బాత్, సో సమ్ సోప్ యూ పర్చేజ్. విచ్ సోప్? Triple X? No. Fiamma de Wills or Biotic Almond Oil or Mama Earth Shea Butter. So whatever, whichever is your favorite soap. MRP inclusive of all taxes. Under GST is collected. Hair oil, which is your favorite hair oil? Parachute, Jasmine, Hair Care, Navratna, Vatika, Bajaj Almond. Patanjali, Keshkala, Dabur Amla. So look at. Earlier, we were paying taxes only on some goods. Now we are paying taxes on almost each and every consumer good. So in reality, we are paying more. ఒకేసారి ఎక్కువ కలెక్ట్ చేయకుండా తక్కువ ఎక్కువ కలెక్ట్ చేస్తున్నారు. ఏమైనా అర్థమైందా? సో దిస్ ఈజ్ కాల్డ్ as ఓవరాల్ జిఎస్టీ. సో క్లాస్ అయిపోయిన తర్వాత రూమ్కి వెళ్ళిన తర్వాత మీ రూమ్మేట్కి ఎక్స్ప్లెయిన్ చేయాలి జిఎస్టీ అంటే ఏంటో. మీ నాలెడ్జ్ చూసి వాళ్ళే రూమ్ ఖాళీ చేసి వెళ్ళిపోతారు. సో నువ్వు ఇంత చదివేసావా? ఇద్దరు రూమ్మేట్స్ అనుకోండి, ఇద్దరికి ఏం తెలియదు కదా, సో సైలెంట్ ఉంటారు. సో దిస్ ఈజ్ అబౌట్ జిఎస్టీ. If you understood GST, you will be able to answer the questions. Maybe by heart. GST, CGST. Exam lo em avadu. Be. Because question is based on understanding. Only question is not based on by hearting of the definitions. Okay? So some more terms are there. We will try to finish. So put the heading. Rasa anina GST? Em rayaleda? Oh, write fast. Under indirect taxes only. Goods and Services Tax, GST. Continuation. Goods and Services Tax, GST. Vijay Kelkar Committee suggested. Vijay Kelkar, KLKR. Vijay Kelkar Committee suggested consolidation of several indirect taxes. Vijay Kelkar Committee suggested consolidation of several indirect taxes. Several indirect taxes, and to simplify indirect tax structure, and to simplify indirect tax structure. (122) Constitutional Amendment Bill. Continuation. 122. Continuation. 122 Constitutional Amendment Bill was introduced related to GST. 101 CAA. 101 Constitutional Amendment Act. Finally approved. Implementation of GST. GST is a single point. GST is a single point destination based tax. GST is a single point destination based tax which is implemented with the motto motto one nation one market, one nation one market one tax. It was implemented from It was implemented from July 1st, 2017. It was implemented from July 1st, 2017. GST tried to replace several indirect taxes. GST tried to replace several indirect taxes. However, it did not substitute all indirect taxes. Okay.